Hello and welcome. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Shan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. Massive rally in Uttar Pradesh's Saharanpur highlights beginning of celebrations of 2 years of the Narendra Modi government. Opposition slams NDA, says they're fooling people. President Mukherjee underlined strategic importance of Indo-China relations during meeting with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, says leadership in two countries can work for a positive global impact. Supreme Court relaxes bail condition for Italian marine accused of killing Kerala fishermen, allowed to return home to Italy. Kerala Chief Minister calls it big foul play by the centre. At least 3 killed in a massive explosion inside a chemical factory in the outskirts of Mumbai. Area seemed to ensure unhindered rescue work. And G7 summit begins in Japan with leaders voicing concern about emerging economies. North Korea's nuclear ambitions also figure during talks. Our top story this evening today is the second anniversary of the BJP-led NDA government. The celebrations were marked by Prime Minister Modi's mega rally in Saharanpur and a series of other events across different districts in Uttar Pradesh. As part of its strategy on its second anniversary, the BJP is concentrating its energy on UP now, the state which goes to the polls next year, and winning which is very crucial for the BJP to strengthen its hold in the Rajya Sabha.
Full-page ads in newspapers, promising to transform India, and a message from the Prime Minister that the country is indeed changing. That's how the second anniversary celebrations of the Narendra Modi government began on Thursday. A mega rally to highlight the government's achievements in 2 years was held at Saharanpur in UP, addressed by the Prime Minister himself. A number of cabinet ministers also addressed rallies and participated in various programs across different parts of UP. The party is specifically targeting Uttar Pradesh with an eye on the state polls next year.
हमने कांग्रेस के राज में साया देखा भ्रष्टाचार का इस राष्ट्र पर, लेकिन जब नरेंद्र मोदी देश के प्रधानमंत्री बने तब से बिचौलियों को रात को नींद नहीं आती, क्योंकि वो जानते हैं कि अब पारदर्शिता के माध्यम से सरकार आगे बढ़ रही है.
A number of programs have been planned from 27th May to the 15th of June, covering as many as 33 cities across the country. 33 teams comprising union ministers and BJP leaders have been entrusted to go and inform people about the achievements and schemes of the government. A mega show called Zara Muskurado is also being organized by the government on Saturday. It will be held at India Gate in New Delhi and broadcast live on Doordarshan. Its focus will be to highlight the various schemes launched by the Modi government in the last 2 years. Opposition parties, however, are not amused by the government's plans. In a power-packed press conference, top Congress leaders accused the Modi government of making false promises by only delivering lectures but no governance.
The government is just thriving on advertisements. This 2 years of NDA era was of social tension and fear. All sections of society, be youth, farmers, industrialists, traders, women, OBC, SC, ST or minorities, are either disenchanted with the government or are living in a fear psychosis. Economy, total, complete failure. This government has totally failed to revive the economy. Exports are persistently falling for the last 15 to 16 months. Industrial production stagnant. Core sector growth is negligible. Rupee vis-a-vis dollar is sliding. Corporate sales are down.
The Aam Aadmi Party also accused the centre of splurging on public money by spending crores on advertisements.
ऑफिसर ट्रैवल एजेंट बन गए। माननीय मोदी जी को इस देश में भेजा जा रहा है, उस देश में भेजा जा रहा है। किस उम्मीद के साथ भेजा जा रहा है कि विदेशों के साथ माननीय मोदी जी के भारतवर्ष के संबंध सुधरेंगे। अरे जो शांत बैठा रहता था नेपाल, वो भी आपको आंख दिखाता है। चाइना की तो छोड़ दीजिए, वो आपके घर में हर दूसरे तीसरे दिन घुसा आता है।
Despite the criticism, Prime Minister Modi believes that his government has brought in the much required changes in the country, a message he wants to spread through this video released on his second year in office. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
President Mukherjee said that India-China relations have acquired strategic significance. During his opening remarks during talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, Mukherjee said that together the two countries can positively impact global peace and prosperity. The president is on a 4-day visit to China.
President Pranab Mukherjee told his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping that Sino-India relations have acquired strategic significance. During his opening remarks during talks with Xi at the Great Hall of the People, Mukherjee said that if the two countries work together, they can generate tremendous momentum for global peace and prosperity. The talks began after Mukherjee was given a ceremonial welcome with a 21-gun salute. Earlier, President Mukherjee delivered a lecture at the elite Peking University in Beijing. He outlined the 8 pillars for future of India-China relations. He said that political understanding between the two countries is vital for closer developmental partnership.
India and China are the inheritors of a great legacy, born of our intensive intellectual and cultural contacts since the first millennium.
President Mukherjee stressed on the need for enhancing people-to-people contact while also resolving issues facing the two countries through political acumen.
Our bilateral relations have been tested by difficulties and challenges, but the determination of the people to safeguard their friendship with the people of China and India has visibly endured.
In the backdrop of China blocking India's bid in the United Nations Security Council, Mukherjee recalled India's support to China's membership of the UN.
It was demonstrated in India's early recognition of the People's Republic of China in December 1949, the establishment of our diplomatic relations in April 1950, and India's constant public support through the 80s, 60s and 70s for the admission of the People's Republic of China to the United Nations and the restitution of the permanent membership of United Nations Security Council.
The President also highlighted that both India and China are poised to play a significant and constructive role in the 21st century.
We both are at the threshold of an opportunity to join hands and create a resurgence, a positive energy on Asian century.
President Mukherjee is on the 3rd day of his 4-day visit to China. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, Vice President Hamid Ansari will undertake a 5-day visit to North African countries of Morocco and Tunisia from the 30th of May. The Vice President will be in Morocco from the 30th of May to the 1st of June at the invitation of Prime Minister Abdellah Ben-Kirani. The two leaders will jointly launch the India-Morocco Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Rabat. The Vice President would hold discussions in Rabat with King Mohammed and Prime Minister Ben-Kirani. On the second leg of his two-nation tour, Ansari will be visiting Tunisia from the 2nd to the 3rd of June at the invitation of Prime Minister Habib Essid. During the visit, the Vice President would be holding discussions in Tunis with Essid and President Beji Caid Essebsi. He would deliver a keynote address to the Tunisian diplomatic corps and leading scholars and think tanks at the Tunisian Institute for Strategic Studies. The Vice President will be accompanied by the Minister of State for Chemicals and Fertilizers, Hansraj Gangaram Ahir, 4 members of parliament and senior officials. The Italian Marine accused of killing 2 Indian fishermen in 2012 is free to go back to his country. This after the Supreme Court relaxed his bail on 4 conditions. The Kerala government has reacted sharply to the development, calling it a big foul play by the centre.
The Supreme Court has relaxed the bail conditions of Salvatore Giron, one of the 2 Italian Marines accused of killing 2 Indian fishermen off the Kerala coast in 2012. The apex court has allowed him to go back to Italy till an international arbitral tribunal decides the jurisdictional issue between the 2 countries. The centre had also backed the Marine's plea, saying he should be granted relief on humanitarian grounds. However, the bench sought an undertaking from the Italian ambassador that Giron would return within a month if the international tribunal rules the case in India's favour. The apex court has imposed 4 conditions on the Marine during his stay in Italy.
The court has said in its order that because of this order of the international tribunal, India has to comply with the order. So therefore, as per the order, now certain conditions have been put, which are the conditions which will be used to permit him to go abroad and stay in Italy.
Under the bail conditions, Giron must report to a police station in Italy every month. Giron must not influence or tamper with the evidence. The third condition imposed by the Supreme Court is that Giron must give an undertaking that he will remain under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And lastly, the Supreme Court would cancel his bail if he is found violating any of the imposed conditions.
Decision is against fishermen's right. Actually, government of India, Indian authorities allowed to the Italian Marines to go back to Italy. Prime Minister's stand is against fishermen's rights.
While Salvatore Giron has been living in the Italian embassy in New Delhi, the other Marine, Massimiliano Latorre, went back to Italy after he suffered a stroke in 2014. The Marines who were on board ship Enrica Alexi are accused of killing 2 Indian fishermen during an anti-piracy mission. Their arrest has strained ties between the 2 countries, with Italy demanding the sailors be released. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
An immediate setback to the Haryana government. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has stayed the reservation for Jats and 5 other communities. The court's stay came on a petition challenging the constitutional validity of the Haryana Backward Classes Act 2016 that was passed unanimously by the State Assembly on the 29th of March. The court, in its interim order, said stayed the reservation till the 21st of June and also issued a notice to the state government asking for a reply on the next hearing. The development comes months after the Haryana Assembly unanimously passed the Haryana Backward Classes Bill 2016, promising 10% reservation to Jats and 5 other castes in government jobs and educational institutions. The Haryana Assembly on the 29th of March had passed the bill within 13 minutes after it was formally introduced by Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar in the State Assembly, days before the 3rd April deadline set by the Jats, who threatened a violent agitation if their demand for reservation was not met. The bill included 6 castes: Jats, Jat Sikhs, Roars, Bishnois, Tyagis and Muslim Jats in the list of backward classes. There are 77 castes that were already covered under backward classes.
बेसिकली तो इस केस में हमने जैसे शेड्यूल सी जो है अभी जैसे जो 2016 का भी जो एक्ट जो पास हुआ है हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट ने जो इम्प्लीमेंट किया है 12 फरवरी को, उसमें हमने सिर्फ शेड्यूल सी को चैलेंज किया हुआ है। शेड्यूल सी के अंदर 6 कास्ट को इंक्लूड किया हुआ है और इनको इंक्लूड करने का बेसिस जो था वो डेट वाज केसी गुप्ता कमीशन रिपोर्ट। केसी गुप्ता कमीशन रिपोर्ट कंप्लीटली रिजेक्टेड बाय द ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट and a funding of fact was recorded by Honorable Supreme Court that Jat are not backwards.
And as we told you earlier in the bulletin, massive rallies are being held across the country, including in Saharanpur, where the Prime Minister is speaking about the 2 years of the NDA government. Let's listen into what the Prime Minister is saying.
प्रार्थना की है और मैं आज दोबारा दोहराना चाहता हूं, यहां भी जो डॉक्टर मित्र हैं, एमएलए एमपी हैं, वो अपने इलाके में डॉक्टरों को समझाएं। क्या मेरे डॉक्टर मित्र एक काम कर सकते हैं क्या? हर महीने 9 तारीख को, हर महीने की 9 तारीख कोई भी गरीब प्रसूता माता अगर उनके यहां आती है तो मुफ्त में उसका देखभाल करेंगे, उसकी जांच करेंगे, दवाइयां देंगे। हमारी गरीब माताएं प्रसूति के समय कभी कभी अकाल मृत्यु हो जाती है। अगर हमारे डॉक्टर 12 महीने में 12 दिन दे दें हर महीने की 9 तारीख कोई डॉक्टर को ज्यादा नुकसान नहीं होगा। अगर मेरे देश के 1 करोड़ परिवार गैस की सब्सिडी छोड़ सकते हैं तो मेरे पढ़े लिखे डॉक्टर भी 12 महीने में 12 दिन मेरी गरीब प्रसूता माताओं के लिए दान दे सकते हैं और मेरी गरीब प्रसूता माताओं को मदद मिल सकती है। मैं आज उनसे ये आग्रह करता हूं, आइए बहनों, लेकिन इसके साथ साथ जब स्वास्थ्य की बात आती है तो मुझे एक बात और भी कहनी है। हमारे देश में डॉक्टरों की संख्या कम है, मेडिकल एजुकेशन में भी अलग अलग राज्यों के अलग अलग नियम हैं। कहीं पर डॉक्टर सरकारी अस्पताल में 60 साल में रिटायर्ड हो जाता है, कहीं पर 62 साल में रिटायर्ड हो जाता है और हमें डॉक्टर की कमी महसूस होती है। अगर देश में पहले ही ज्यादा मेडिकल कॉलेज बने होते, पहले ही ज्यादा डॉक्टर तैयार हो गए होते, आज डॉक्टरों की कमी नहीं पड़ती।
Well, time for a very short break. We'll be right back with lots more.
Unless you propagate basic research in India, this country would not catch up with the rest of the world. If you want to come back, then come back as an Indian. If you want to be a foreigner in India, you will never succeed. If we have to import a technology from America, please import it 100%. But work on developing your own technologies.
Watch Eureka with Professor Khurshid Iqbal Andrabi, Vice Chancellor, Kashmir University, only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back. Here watching the news at 6. Now, a massive explosion occurred inside a chemical factory in the outskirts of Mumbai today. At least 3 are feared dead and over 100 injured in the incident. Reportedly, officials have sealed the areas of the factory to ensure that rescue work is carried out unhindered.
At least 3 people have been killed and several others injured in a blast inside a chemical factory in Dombivli area near Mumbai. The mishap reportedly occurred after the blast in a boiler in Acharya chemical factory in Dombivli. The impact of the blast was reportedly so severe that it was felt up to a distance of 4 kilometers. As many as 8 fire tenders were rushed to the spot to douse the flames, which erupted after the blast. According to reports, many people are feared trapped under the debris, even as firefighters have begun rescue work on a war footing. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis termed the incident unfortunate and asked the police and the local authorities to speed up the rescue operations.
3 से 4 लोगों की मृत्यु हुई है, ऐसी प्राथमिक जानकारी है और 100 के लगभग लोग इंजर्ड है।
11:30 to 35 के बीच में धमाका हो गया। इमीडिएट हमको इन्फॉर्मेशन मिली तो 3-4 गाड़ियां इमीडिएट कॉल पे भेज दी।
The injured have been rushed to the nearby hospital. The area has been cordoned off and mobile services in the area have been suspended. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some international news now, and the 2-day-long G7 summit began in Japan today with leaders voicing concern about emerging economies. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe warned G7 counterparts about fears of an economic crisis on the scale of the Lehman Brothers, while US President Barack Obama raised North Korea's ambitious nuclear issue. Here are the details.
As the G7 summit kicks off in Japan, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe welcomed leaders of member countries at the Uji Bridge of the Ise Grand Shrine, the holiest site of Shinto religion. The leaders then gathered together and planted trees at the compound. Later, the group began their first full working session with talks on trade. During the trade session, G7 leaders voiced concern about emerging economies. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe made a pointed comparison to the 2008 global financial crisis. He also warned G7 counterparts about fears of an economic crisis on the scale of Lehman Brothers.
世界経済についてしっかりとした議論を行い、我々は大きな危機に、大きなリスクに直面をしている、世界経済は大きなリスクに直面をしているという認識については一致することができたわけであります。
North Korea also figured in the talks with US President Barack Obama, saying the country's nuclear ambitions pose a serious medium-term threat.
North Korea is a big worry for all of us. They're not at the point right now where they can effectively hit US targets, but each time that they test, even if those tests fail, they learn something. And it is clear that ideologically they are still convinced that, and Kim Jong-un in particular seems to be convinced that his own legitimacy is tied up with developing nuclear weapons.
Meanwhile, China warned the G7 members not to raise the South China Sea issue. The leaders of Japan, Britain and Canada have all expressed concern over the issue in the days leading up to the annual summit.
我们反对个别国家出于一己私利炒作南海问题。我们认为呢，七国集团应该集中精力处理好自己集团内部的事情，而不是对其他国家或者不该管的事情来指手画脚，变成或者沦落为个别国家来体现存在感的一个秀场。
Apart from the creaky global economy, issues like terrorism, refugees, and a possible Brexit headlines G7's packed agenda. On the sidelines of the summit, US President Barack Obama will visit the atomic-bombed city of Hiroshima on Friday, becoming the first sitting US leader to travel to the site of the world's first nuclear attack in 1945. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, France has been hit by serious disruptions as its biggest trade union went on a strike against the government's new labour reform laws. While protests have been continuing intermittently since March, the strikes have intensified since last week, leading to a severe oil crisis in the country. Meanwhile, the French government has said that it will not withdraw the labour reforms.
Between the French government and labour union CGT showed no signs of ending as fresh strikes against the government's labour reforms intensified on Thursday. Blockades of oil depots in western France also continued for the sixth day as the government mobilized its oil reserves for the first time since 2010. The Oil Industry Federation confirmed that around a third of the country's 12,000 petrol stations are running dry. 16 out of the country's 19 nuclear stations joined the strike on Wednesday night, with at least 9 nuclear reactors reported unplanned power cuts.
Aujourd'hui, ce qui nous intéresse, c'est que le mouvement se généralise. L'ensemble des secteurs d'activité de notre pays a l'air d'être décidés en plus à agir sur l'outil de travail pour paralyser l'économie. Donc on pense vraiment que ça y est, on a un mouvement qui est reconductible, généralisé, avec la volonté d'agir sur l'économie pour plus. Donc ça devrait normalement les contraindre.
French Prime Minister Manuel Valls has insisted that the labour laws would stand and that further blockades would be broken up, as trade unions do have the power to bring the country to a standstill. The relay strikes, which began in March, gathered pace in recent weeks and have disrupted fuel supplies in France since Friday, with protesting workers blockading petrol depots and halting production at refineries.
Et créer de l'emploi, le dialogue social pour certains. Je suis respectueux de la CGT, dont je connais l'histoire, sa participation pleine et entière à l'histoire de notre pays, à la résistance, à volonté de donner des droits aux salariés. Mais ça n'est pas la CGT.
The CGT is locked in an increasingly bitter struggle with the government against the labour market reform, which makes it easier for firms to hire and fire workers. While the government insists that reforms are crucial to fight rampant unemployment, the union, however, says the changes are too pro-business and will do little to reduce France's jobless rate of around 10%. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now in Global Buzz. Thousands of Zimbabwean ruling party supporters took part in a procession dubbed the Million Man March in the capital Harare in honor of President Robert Mugabe, calling for his continuation in leadership. The march, which drew supporters from all the country's 10 provinces, was organized by the party's youth league. In his address to the supporters, Mugabe spoke about factionalism and infighting, wreaking havoc in his party. Gibraltar is shaken by the prospects of a Brexit when the United Kingdom goes to the polls on the 23rd of June to decide whether it will remain in or leave the European Union. Although no official poll has been carried out in Britain's 6 square kilometre overseas territory, the 23,000 Gibraltarians who have registered to vote are overwhelmingly expected to choose to remain in the EU. Having a hostile neighbour in Spain, Deputy Chief Minister Joseph Garcia said makes the case to remain in Europe necessary. China always supports the freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, but is opposed to any freedom of navigation of wanton navigation in the region. This, according to a Chinese military official. His name is Guan Yufei, the director of the Office of International Military Cooperation of China's Central Military Commission. He made these remarks after the ASEAN-China Defense Ministers' informal meeting attended by the Chinese Defense Minister. Over 100 firefighters needed to tackle a fire at a Sydney car dismantling yard that sent plumes of smoke over the city. Fire crews were quick to respond, but the blaze spread quickly, fueled by the flammable materials inside the car yard. 2 men were injured during the blaze. According to local media, the 2 men were taken to hospital and remain in critical condition. That's all from us. Goodbye.